A high-profile delegation from the United States National Democratic Institute has been in the country for the past 1 week to assess public mood and preparations for the coming general election. The subject of 4 Kenyans who have been indicted by the ICC for bearing greatest responsibility over the 2007 post-poll chaos never escaped their attention. Some of the ICC suspects have declared interest to vie for the presidency and have been holding prayer campaign rallies across the country. The prayer meetings have been condemned by a section of the civil society and politicians, arguing they have a potential of dividing the country.
And what we're urging is that all of the political actors in this country and Kenyan citizens would allow those processes to move forward without further complicating and further polarizing the political environment.
The government has continually engaged in diplomatic missions to have the ICC cases transferred to Kenya. Recently, the heads of state from the East Africa community rallied behind the government in urging the cases to be heard and determined by the Arusha-based East Africa Court of Justice.
It is not within our mandate to evaluate the various arguments about where these processes will transpire. These are matters of rule of law, and a separate delegation could look into those matters at some depth and offer recommendations.
The NDI team urged Kenyans to demand a clean break from electoral lawlessness, politically motivated violence, hate speech and incitement to ethnic animosities and vote buying.
Immediate and concerted efforts are needed to prevent political violence and to remove uncertainties in the electoral environment that could threaten the integrity of elections.
The panel is also concerned about the debate surrounding the election date. The Supreme Court is yet to make a ruling on whether the elections should be held in December or March 4th, 2013.
That uncertainty about the election date should be promptly settled.
And what we call upon is a consensus-building process by all of the relevant stakeholders, which would involve the President, the Prime Minister, the Parliament, the political parties, and of course there are judicial actions that would take notice of a consensus agreement about setting that date.
Pollsters have hinted at the possibility of a runoff after the presidential vote. NDI wants Parliament and the judiciary to make clear laws to deal with such an eventuality.
Measures are needed to fill the present lacuna about the resolution of possible disputes arising from the first round of the presidential election. One would look to a time frame which would allow the election result to be determined early enough for the election, the IEBC, to then prepare for that second round runoff.
The Institute called for quick legislation on laws that will determine the 2/3 gender rule for elective posts, as well as hastening the process of issuing identity cards to youth, internally displaced persons, and people with disabilities. Patrick Amimo, KTN, Saturday Night.